Here, so here you could listen. I don't know, you could listen to not recording in progress. Okay. Don't worry, don't worry. All right. So today, good evening, everyone. Again, I hope you're okay. You're well. So we are here with one module more. All right. So this is another skill that we're going to talk about in this session. The last sessions, the 4 last sessions were related to the reading skill, no? Notice that in these 2 modules, we're talking about first what we called the so-called receptive skills, no? But if you could notice, reading, just was receptive one, no? Because here the reader brings some information to the test too. So not just receptive, no? But it's very well known that these 2 skills, reading and listening, were related to the reception, no? To the decodification of information, right? You understand something and decodify this information to get some knowledge, to understand something, all right? But notice when we talked about reading, you can notice that we not just decodify the test, no? In order to decodify this test, this written test, so we use also our previous knowledge, our schemata, and then we match them, or we join them with information that you could find in the test, no? But as I told you before, we call these skills, no, in general terms, receptive skills, all right? So here we're going to start with this listening, and I want you, please, I'm gonna give you here a link. I don't know if you have ever used a Padlet. Do you know how to use Padlet? Yes or no? Tell me.
I heard about this, teacher. Good evening. How are you?
Hello. Yeah, so I'm gonna, tell me.
I hear you, and I tried even when I was in a course, but I don't remember really how to use it, but I know it, okay?
Yeah, all right. Yeah, don't worry, because if you don't know, tell me, and I can help you, yeah? Because we're going to do an activity using Padlet. As you know, maybe you didn't know about it. This is a tool, no, in order to create a mural, no, an online mural or billboard, no, a college board, no, in order to give you some opinions, no, your students can give some opinions, right? Also, not just written tests, they can upload voice or record voice, images, pictures, and so on. So I'm going to give you the link, yeah? You're going to click on this link. Just give me a second. Yeah, here it is. Let's see. Yeah, all right. So I'm gonna put it here in the chat. Can you see it? Yes. Can you see it? I'm gonna show you.
Teacher. Yes, teacher.
All right. Yeah. So please enter to this link. Here on this link, you can see my screen, right? Yes?
Yes, teacher.
All right. So maybe you don't know how to use it. I'm going to teach you how to use it. At the bottom, at the right button, notice that you have here an icon with the symbol plus. Can you see it? Yes? I'm going to remark it. Notice here. Yes? Can you see it? Yeah? So click on this icon. You just click here on the board. Remember, this is like a board. All right? And you click and you start writing. What do you need to write? You have to answer these 2 questions, but you have to give me these answers according to your point of view, according to your background knowledge. What you know, don't look up information in the internet or any other resource. No, tell me about your ideas, your opinions. That's it. That's it. Don't try to look up for information in the internet. No. It's not necessary, all right? Just give me your ideas, your opinions. You have here 2 questions. What is listening and why do we listen? So you have to tell me that. what is listening for you? And tell me, why do we listen? What is the purpose of listening? Yes, do you get it? Yeah. Enter, please. Enter to this link. Yeah, click on the link. Don't forget to write your names. For example, notice here, I'm going to do an example. I'm going to do by myself. Notice this is the icon. If you click on the icon or you pass your mouse over the icon, you can see some information, ¿no? Here is in Spanish, ¿no? Haz doble clic en cualquier lugar, arrastra archivos, pega contenido del portapapeles o haz clic aquí para publicar. So yo puedo darle clic en cualquier lado de esta pizarra. Esta es como una pizarra en línea, como un mural. Y ustedes van a ir poniendo sus mensajes, sus ideas. Don't forget to write your names. No se olviden de poner su nombre también. For example, I'm going to click here. And notice appear like a notepad, ¿no? Aparece como una libretita de notas. So here you have to write. Notice you start writing and then you publish it. All right? You say publish. And that's it. That's all. Okay? Please, everyone, hurry up, hurry up. I'm going to put a link again. Maybe you cannot see it. Yeah, here you have the link. Everybody enter to the link. This is related to listening. I want you to tell me, what do you think listening is? And why do we listen? What are the purposes of listening? Tell me. Oh, no, you cannot enter. ¿Pueden entrar? Díganme, por favor. Tell me. Can you enter? No. Aha, here we have one message. It is to pay attention when someone wants to tell you something. Yeah, it is to understand others. Very good. Aha. Oh, who wrote this? ¿Quién escribió? No me puso nombre. Arribita en la parte superior.
Me, Janela, Janela.
Janela, all right, Janela. Very good, Janela. Okay, you can edit it too. Janela says, notice that you can edit. Click on the 3 points. Ahí tienen los 3 puntitos. Le das clic ahí y puedes editarlo, Janela. Y ahí puedes poner tu nombre. En la parte superior derecha, mira, tienes 3 puntitos. Ahí dice editar. Edit. You click here and you can edit it. All right? Yeah. Anybody else? No more. What is listening and why do we listen? Oh, maybe the connection is not so good. No more. Nobody else? Tell me, please.
Teacher, it is similar to Jamboard, right?
Yeah. Okay. Yes. Similar to Jamboard. Jamboard is specifically a whiteboard, no? A board. You can create a lot of whiteboards inside one, no? So here but they are similar. They have a similar function, no? To interact with your students. No? This is very important. There is another one. Listening is the action to hear something, and we listen because we try to understand something. Okay, all right. Who wrote this? You forgot writing your names. Who wrote this? Listening is the action to hear something, and we listen because we try to understand something. Who wrote that? Flor. Flor says listening is...
Elia, teacher.
Elia, all right. Okay. Don't forget to write your names, please. Listening is hear something, a message. Flor, all right. Cindy, do you want to say something? Cindy? Oh, no? Okay, let's see another one. It is to pay attention when someone wants to tell you something. It is to understand others. All right, Janila, that's it. Diana says, it is to give attention to sound or action. to be able to receive message. Very good, Diana. It is to give attention to sound, notice sound or action, and also is to be able to receive message. So, Diana, this is the why do we listen? Cindy. Very good, Cindy. Okay, yeah, listening is the action to hear something, and we listen because we try to understand something. Yeah, no, this is the general purpose, no? This is the general purpose of listening, no? To understand, no? Similar to reading, no? To understand. But as Diana wrote, the difference is that type of language that we are going to use or we are going to receive, no? In the reading, we receive a written language, but in listening, we have an oral language most of the times, no? Most of the times, we have the oral language. All right. Listening is the ability to accurately receive and interpret messages, no? Messages, who wrote this? Accurately receive and interpret messages, right? In the communication process, no? I think a messages come process with process, you mix. All right, messages in the communication process, right? Who wrote this? Who was the person who wrote this? Don't be afraid to tell me. Remember, someone is trying to write on the screen. Not on the screen, please. Enter to the link, and you need to write in the board. Here, this is an online board, all right? Like a mural. And you stick your notes, no? You stick your notes. This is similar, no? As Janela says, this is similar to Jamboard, no? When we get to the text module, I'm going to teach you more carefully how to use these tools. Cuando lleguemos al módulo sobre TICS, ahí vamos a ver estas herramientas, ¿no? Que son muy buenas, muy interesantes. And nowadays we use them a lot, ¿no? Nobody else? ¿Nadie más? ¿Nadie más se anima o es la conexión que no pueden entrar? A ver, díganme, si no ya para ir avanzando. Nobody else about listening? All is said, all, your partner said all? O ya dijeron todos sus compañeros. There's nothing more to say. All right. Okay. Yeah, don't worry. So, in general, summarizing your partner's opinions, no? He says that listening is to understand, no? To hear something, to hear sounds, to listen to sounds. And why? Because we need to understand something, right? You receive, as one of your partners says, you receive and interpret these sounds, these messages. All right. Okay. All right. So let's change. Let's go back to the slides. Let's see. I'm going to stop sharing this and I'm going to go to the slides again. Yeah. Tell me you can see it. Can you see it? What's going on? Just give me a second. Yeah, can you see it? Tell me.
Yes, teacher.
All right, okay. Just give me a second. Yeah, here it is. Okay, so we're going to start talking about this skill, no? That is very important when we teach a language. No? Remember, when we teach a language, a foreign language or a second language, we need to teach our students these 4 skills. No? Reading, listening, speaking, and writing. No? The 4 major skills that we have in all languages. No? In all languages. So let's see. Why and how of listening, motivation, and mechanics. So in this slides, we're going to analyze why do we listen? Why are we motivated to listen? And what is the process, not the how of listening or the mechanics of listening? You know that also animals can listen, right? Yes? Frogs, kangaroos, bats, they are able to listen for different purposes. What about human beings? What do you think? Now you can activate your microphones to tell me. What about human beings? Animals can listen too. They can understand some sounds, right? Is it the same for us? What do you think? Is it similar? Tell me your opinions. What do you think? No ideas, no ideas? Remember, we're comparing, we are comparing animals with human beings. Animals and human beings can listen. But what's the difference? What's the difference? Nobody? Okay, yeah, don't worry. So we are going to analyze these aspects. Notice here, notice when you told me and answer the question why, you tell me, most of you told me that the purpose, the principal purpose is to understand, no? That someone is talking to us or telling us. So if we give some specific purposes, we could say this. The basic purposes for us are information gathering, but also pleasure. Notice, these are the basic purposes for us when we listen, to gather information. Gather, remember, gather is to get, no? To gather information. So that's why here says information gathering. And pleasure. When we listen, for example, to some music, or you listen to a TV show, notice you're listening for pleasure, not just to get some information, right? And we have other reasons too. For example, we could add to these basic purposes, hearing sounds can arouse the imagination and enrich lives for human. Notice, this is another to activate our imagination. It can give you some specific emotions, no? For example, some people says that when we have a class, one of the advices, no, one of some piece of advices is to try to put background music. Why? Because you can create an environment, no, an environment to create, notice, to create an environment. For example, in some of my classes, my students ask me, no, teacher, why when I ask them to do some exercise and not related to grammar or to write something in groups or to work in groups, they told me, teacher, please, could you give us some piece of music in English? Yeah, all right. So I start looking up on the internet, YouTube, I prepare some music, no, and I put them. So notice, they are going to listen, but they are not listening for gathering information or for getting information. It's just to create an environment, and it can arouse the imagination, the imagination of your students, right? Notice, these are the purposes, no? These are the purposes of listening, all right? So most of the time, and I know you say, oh, yeah, teacher, listening is to understand, no? To understand, to decodify some information said by someone else. All right? Yeah, this is the general purpose, no? But there are some specific purposes that we could give to this general one, no? To gather information, to listen for pleasure, no? To activate our imagination, to create an environment. Notice, there are many purposes of listening, not just to gather information. So, our listening can be classified as, depending on the purpose, so you can classify listening. Listening can be classified as listening for gist, listening for a specific information, listening in detail, and inferential listening. Do you have an idea about this classification? What is listening for gist? Do you have an idea? Listening for gist? No, 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 nobody, nobody. Listening for gist. Okay, Flora, okay, okay. No, no, nobody, nobody. Listening for gist. Remember, when we talked about reading, we also see this word, reading for gist. In other words, remember, gist is to get the general idea. Listening to get the general idea, the main idea what you're listening to. All right? Reading for a general idea is similar to say reading for gist. Similar here. Listening for gist is similar to say listening for the general idea. Oh, Leslie, do you want to say something, Leslie?
Maybe when the learner tries to understand what is happening.
Yeah. All right. Yes, in a general way, no? In a general aspect. Yes, you are right, Leslie. Excellent. All right. So don't forget this term, gist. Listening for gist to get the general idea, all right, of the message. The second one is the opposite. Listening for a specific information, some pieces of information. If we want to compare to reading, so we call this, what do we call this? When we read for a specific information, comparing, no? In order to compare, to create a relationship, to understand better. So reading, yeah, we have a lot of purpose of reading, no? Micro reading skills. So here you have reading for a specific information, reading for gist, reading for pleasure, no? That's why we have extensive and intensive. So we have here a kind of similar aspects too. Remember this, both skills are called receptive ones. We're going to receive information, right? Not just to gather, maybe for pleasure, maybe to find some specific points, no? So listening for a specific information is the opposite of listening for gist, all right? So we want to listen for some specific details. Notice in number 3, listening in detail is when you're going to listen to the whole text and you're going to decodify the whole message. This is listening in detail, like in the reading in detail, no? Don't forget the difference. Listening for a specific information is just some points, not just some points, all right? You have to look for some specific points. But listening in detail, it means that you have to understand everything, right? Not just some specific points. Remember, notice the difference. A specific information is that you have to listen and get some specific points, some specific information. But listening in detail means that you try to understand the whole message. You try to understand everything. All right? Everything. This is listening in detail. And inferential listening, what is the inferential listening? Can you tell me? Can you tell me? What is the inferential listening? No, 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 nobody, nobody? Oh, what's going on? Yeah. Okay, okay, don't worry, don't be stressed, don't be stressed. So we're going to analyze this, we're going to analyze. So let's start. Notice here, listening for gist. Notice here, listening for gist. What does it mean? Listening for gist refers to the occasion when we want to know the general idea of what is being said, as well as who is speaking to whom and why, and how successful they are in communicating their point. So this is listening for gist. Remember, listening for gist. When you want to know the general idea of what is being said. And also who's speaking to who, why, what is the reason, what is the reason, and how successful they are in communicating their point. So we call this listening for gist. Remember, listening for gist. Now, let's pass to the other one, to the other aspect of listening. Listening for a specific information. What is it? So the name says all, no? We're going to find, we're going to identify some specific parts. Notice here, this refers to the occasion when we don't need to understand everything. Notice, it's not necessary to understand everything you hear or listen to. No, just some parts, just some specific information. For example, while listening to a list of delayed trains, we're only interested in hearing news about one particular train, the one we want to catch. And so we listen selectively for this specific information. We ignore everything else. Notice, if we compare to reading, what would it be this? A ver, si lo comparo al reading, a la habilidad de lectura, ¿qué sería eso? A ver, acuérdense que estas dos habilidades están muy relacionadas. ¿Se acuerdan que en reading, cuando hablamos de reading, hablamos de dos principales, ¿no? Skimming, scanning. Skimming, would it be listening for gist? And scanning would be listening for a specific information. Aquí yo puedo relacionar estos dos con lo que vimos en reading, ¿no? Que vimos skimming. Skimming, when you read something fast, quickly, to get the general idea of the test, right? This is skimming, right? Yes. And scanning. Oh, yeah, scanning. When you read quickly again to find some specific information. So the same is here. Listening for gist is similar to say skimming in reading, and listening for a specific information is similar to say scanning in reading. Yeah, try to get this, in order to understand better. Listening for gist to get the general idea. Listening for a specific information, some specific parts. No, it's not necessary. Remember, it's not necessary to understand everything. No, it's not important. And here you have an example. No. Let's imagine another train. Maybe you want to fly to another region of Peru. And maybe your plane is delayed, so you listen, no? The speakers says, no, oh, flight number 7 is delayed. No, oh, it's gonna take 2 hours late. So you listen to this. You don't listen to whether, oh, the other plane. No, you don't pay attention to the other plane. You just pay attention to the plane that you are going to take off. That's it. So this is listening for a specific information. Now, let's continue with the other ones. Listening in detail and inferential listening. Listening in detail, remember, refers to the type of listening we do when, for example, we need to find errors or determine differences between one passage and another. We cannot afford to ignore anything because, unlike listening to a list of delayed trains, we don't know exactly what information will help us to achieve our task. Notice, you cannot avoid any information. No. The most important is to get everything in detail. That's why here it says detail. So all the information, you try to understand all the information. And this is helpful to find errors or determine differences between one passage or another. And so we call this listening in detail, similar to reading, no? Reading in detail. So when you need to understand everything in the test, no? Everything. For example, we use this microscript a lot when we practice intensive reading, no? So we make our students to understand, giving them some questions and doing some exercises. So they need to understand everything in the test to complete the exercises, right? So we call this reading in detail. And the same happens when we talked about listening, listening in detail. So you don't have to avoid information. No, you try to understand everything the most possible, right? And the last one is the inferential listening. This refers to the type of listening we do when we wish to know how the speaker feels. It may involve inferring, no? You infer, you deduce, you guess, all right? And we also use this when we read something, no? Let me tell you, and I told you before, here the difference is that kind of language. In reading, you are presented with a written language, and in listening, an oral language. Then we're going to talk about the differences between these two languages, the oral and the written one. Okay, yeah, now is it clear? Yes. Don't forget, listening for general idea. Listening for a specific information, specific parts. You don't need to understand everything. And listening for gist and listening for a specific information, you don't need to understand everything. Just the first one is to get the general idea. So it's not necessary to understand every word that we listen. No, it's not necessary. All right. In both, you don't need to understand every word what the speaker is saying or talking. No. The first one to get the main idea. The second one to get some specific parts from this listening. And on the other, the listening in detail, here you need to understand everything. All right? Word by word, the most words you can understand, all right? It is very important to understand almost everything or everything. That's why here says listening in detail. And the other one is just to infer, no? Inferential listening is to infer, to deduce, to guess, all right? To predict, okay? What, in order to know what the speaker feels, all right? So we call this the inferential listening. Don't forget that we classify this skill in these 4 terms, no? 4 micro skills or strategies. No? Now, let's continue here. As I told you before, so teacher, if they are a kind of similar, so what's the difference? The language. Both reading and listening are related to understand, to get information in a general way or a specific or in detail. Both reading and listening. So the purposes is this. But what's the difference? The language. The language that they receive. In listening, you receive a spoken language. That's why here says the characteristics of a spoken English, of a spoken language. Can you tell me, do you have any ideas about the characteristics of the spoken language? What is the difference with the written language? Can you tell me, do you have an idea? What is the difference between a spoken language, so the language where we use to speak, and the written language, the language that we use to write? What's the difference? Do you have any idea? What's the difference? Can you give me some characteristics of a spoken language?
Probably the spoken language can be, not always, but can be more informal, and reading language could be more formal. Probably could be one of the characteristics.
Yeah. All right. Yes.
The other could be good evening, Mr.
Okay. Good evening. Good evening, Lisette.
The other could be that the spoken language is face to face, so you need someone to talk.
Yeah, all right, all right, all right. Yes. But nowadays it's changing. No? Nowadays it's not necessary to be in front of the person, no? Because of these
Yeah.
technological communication tools.
Oh,
Nowadays it's not necessary. Yeah, but
yeah,
yes, this
but
is an important characteristic of a spoken language.
yeah,
Yes.
because
You're right.
yeah,
You're right.
if we talk in writing, so you can write alone. But if you when you talk, you need someone, or you talk to someone. Uh,
Yeah.
it was this is usual, but now that technology is changing this,
Yeah, it's
it's
changing
other,
that.
it's another
Uh-huh.
thing. But
Yes.
the real thing, the thing from the beginning, to say something, is that you need someone to talk.
Exactly.
You talk to
Exactly.
someone.
Uh-huh. But let me tell you something, Elizabeth. When we talked about reading, remember that it's not just a person, or written language, it's not just a person who writes, no? Because when you write something, there must be a person who's gonna read what you wrote. So we have again this process, but it's not at the moment, right? It's not instant.
Yeah,
Not
it's not that
instant. All right.
it's not at instant. It's not at the moment. But when you talk, you need to talk to someone, even if it's not near to you. You can
Mm-hmm.
talk with
Yeah.
someone, like now I am
Uh-huh.
talking to you.
Yes,
So that's,
exactly. Like a phone conversation too, no?
yeah, like a phone conversation.
Yes, you are right. You are right. You're completely right. So let's see. Let's see some characteristics. You told me some of them, and we are going to analyze this. Here, notice there is an important factor that is changing also our reality, no? Because of the recent trend of text messaging, nowadays we prefer sending a text message than calling someone, right? Or maybe sending
Yeah.
a voice message. Nowadays, using this famous WhatsApp or Telegram and so on. For example, in my age, it was very famous the SMS, no, the short message
Yeah.
instant. Yeah? Then appeared the WhatsApp or Telegram.
Technology is changing. Technology is
Yeah.
changing.
All
Technology is
right.
separating us.
Oh yeah.
At the
Yeah.
beginning was television, because before television, people of families, people used to talk, for
Yeah.
example, at dinner time, at lunch time. But now,
Yes. Yes.
because of television, because of iPads and
Phones. No.
all the
Yes. You're
technology
right.
that appears,
Yeah, but
it change
I
and
think
separate in a way, no?
yes, yes, you're right. You're right. No, that's why our role as teachers, as parents, no, to tell our children or our relatives, no, in what moments do we need to use these technological devices? No, this is very important to do. All right. So notice here, because of this new trend of text messaging and chat rooms, writing has begun to take some of the features of speaking. As you told me, some features of speaking were informality. It was informal. But nowadays, writing is having this characteristic too. When you write this messages, you do it in an informal way, using some contractions, no, or some short forms, no. So you make the writing informal. But it is now that writing is more formal than speaking, because you don't plan. No? You don't plan. When you speak, you don't say, oh, yeah, I'm going to say this. Maybe if it is a presentation or a speech or a talk, no, maybe you plan what to say. But most of the time when we speak, we don't plan it. We would just say it, no, what we have in our mind, and we produce it. But nowadays, writing is changing, because nowadays writing is having some features, some characteristics of speaking, having some characteristic of the spoken language. And one of this is informality. Remember, the spoken language is informal. Another one is the lack of attention to punctuation. When we speak, we produce sounds, no? When we speak, we produce sounds, and we don't use this punctuation marks. No? So we have some pauses that indicate, no? Because if you want to talk or speak, you have to do it with intonation, rhythm. No, it's not like speaking like a robot. No, 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 no. If you say don't punctuation, I'm going to speak as I want. No, you have to follow some patterns of intonation, pauses, no stress, and so on. But we don't have a clear mark of punctuation, and it's happening to writing nowadays. No punctuation. When you write your text messages, you start writing no capital letters, no difference between capital letters, small letters, no commas, no. So you lost everything. No? So notice, this is another difference between the spoken and the written language. But nowadays is disappearing, this difference. No? So spoken language is informal. There is no attention to punctuation graphically, because we have to follow some rules of punctuation when we speak too. Another is transience, being temporary. All right, being temporary. When you speak to someone else, it is not recorded, no? Maybe if you're in a class and your teacher asks you to record your conversation or dialogue, maybe you can do that. But most of the time when you speak, when you talk, you speak or talk just for that moment, and it's not for all the time, no? It's not recorded. That's why he says being temporary. And it's happening also to the written language nowadays too. When you have a message, oh yeah, no, this is not what I want to write. You delete it. The message deleted. So this message disappear, right? Disappear. It was temporal too. So notice nowadays we're changing these features of written and spoken language. And the other one is the real-time interaction. No? As we were talking with Elizabeth, no? When you talk, there is a person who is listening to you, and this person is going to answer to you to give you some response. And it's happening now to the writing too, no? When you chat with your friends, you're, oh, hello, how are you, my friends? What are you doing? And your partner says, oh, hi, listen, hi, how's it going? Oh, what about going to party? So there is an interaction nowadays, no? Nowadays. So we have this interaction in the written language too. So notice here, yeah, the difference between these two kind of languages, but nowadays it is changing, all right? It is changing. Written language nowadays is having some features of a spoken language. Even though both listening and reading are receptive skills, we call them receptive skills, there are some significant differences between them. For example, first, reading takes place over space, while listening takes place over time. Notice the difference between reading and listening. Reading takes place over space, while listening takes place over time. Another one. Then oral data has no recorder and invisible ink. This is the difference between the written language and the oral language. The oral data has no recording. You don't have recordings, what you spoke or what you talked with your friend, no? There are some specific situations that you can record what you talk or what you speak, but most of the time it doesn't have any recordings, no? No ink. No, when you read a text, you can see some graphemes using the ink or printer. No, you print something and you start reading, so you have some visual graphemes. But when you speak, no. So it means that this data is based on spontaneous performance and disappears so soon. All right? Disappears so soon. For example, this, when I'm talking to you, is recording. So you can have the opportunity to listen to me again 1, 2, 3, 4 times as you want, right? But because this is a formal situation, no? This is a class. But when you speak to your friend, You don't do something like this, right? So most of the time, the oral data is spontaneous, all right? It's spontaneous. For example, if I have this class for another group, maybe at that moment, I would have maybe other ideas to add. With you, I have a plan. Yes, I have a plan. No, I have a scheme, what to speak, to talk, no? What is the order or sequence? But maybe in the other class that I have other ideas, so I remember something that I didn't remember here with you. So notice, this is spontaneous. What we talked is spontaneous and it disappears so soon. But if it is not recorded, if it is recorded, you can hear a lot of times, no? As listening takes place over time, not space, the gaps between words are not seen. When we talk, when we speak, we join words, no? Remember, we join words. We don't say something word by word, no? Maybe you want to emphasize in something, you can stop in one word. No, don't do that. Stop. Maybe you want to emphasize. When we speak right now, you join words. It's a continuous stream of sounds, no? A continuous stream of sounds. So notice here, there are no gaps. Gaps are spaces. Remember, gaps means spaces, no? The spaces between words are not seen. You join words, 2, 3 word, 4 word together, all right? So that's why this is another difference with the written language. In the written language, when you have the words, so the words are divided, no? Using gaps, using spaces, and some punctuation marks, no? So notice the difference between the oral language and the written language. Let's see other differences between, and here we have some aspects. Notice this is related to speaking, but we are going to take into account because we are considering the oral language, no? Because listening is related to the oral language. That's why we are talking about it. Yeah, that's why we are talking about. That's the reason that we are talking about the oral language, because listening is related to the oral language. Reading is related to the written language. So we are making a comparison. What kind of language are we going to receive and decodify? So here we're going to analyze in a brief situation. Maybe you can remember because we talked about this in phonology, ¿no? De repente se acuerdan de esto, porque esto lo hemos visto un poquito también cuando vimos fonología, phonética, phonología, yeah? Phonetics and phonology. We talked about these aspects of the spoken language or connected speech. For example, the first one, elision. What is elision? This is one characteristic of a spoken language of connected speech because we're going to join sounds. So what is elision? When you omit sounds. Remember, when you omit sounds, usually at the beginning or end of a word, in order to make pronunciation of the utterance easier for the speaker. Utterance, remember, utterance, this word utterance is similar to say a sentence, but with a spoken language, with an oral language, sorry. Utterances, remember, is what we talk. The expression sentences, what we talk, all right? This is called a utterance, remember, utterance. So here we're going to use this strategies. Notice we're going to use these strategies to make our pronunciation easier. Yeah, remember. So what is the first thing that you need to do? To take out sounds, to omit sounds. For example, she sat next to the wall. Notice I am pronouncing these words slowly to recognize the sounds specifically. She sat next to the wall. But what happened when you speak fluently, informally? You're not going to speak like this, no? You don't say, she sat next to the wall. No, you don't say that, right? So you say, she sat next to the wall. So what do you do? The ta, the sound ta is elided into the ta of to, next to, next to. You just pronounce just one ta, no two ta. Notice you elite. You take out one sound to make your pronunciation easier and make it fluently. All right? You become fluent. Oh, she sat next to a wall. Next to, next to. You're joining words. She sat next to wall. And you omit one ta sound. And this is when we speak, oral. No gaps. Notice, no gaps, no spaces between words. And what do you usually do? You omit sounds. Another one that is very common too, assimilation. What is assimilation? When you change, remember, when you change sounds, all right? When you change sounds, this is called assimilation. And you change sound because you need to accommodate subsequent sounds. For example, tone is a heartbreaker. This is the slow pronunciation. We don't do when we speak. When we speak fluently. Tone is a heartbreaker. Well, this is with pause, with spaces, similar to a written language, but it's not a written language. It's the oral language. So you need to join words. Tone is a heartbreaker. So what are you doing? Notice, heartbreaker, heartbreaker. You change the sound ta to the sound pa to make it similar to the sound ba. And notice heart finishes in the sound ta. And breaker starts with the sound ba. So you change a previous sound. Ta is changing to the sound pa. Why? Because you make similar, no? Pa, ba. They are similar sounds because both are bilabial. Ah, tone is a heartbreaker. Heartbreaker. Notice you don't say ta, you say pa, heartbreaker, heartbreaker, heartbreaker. You are assimilating.
When,
Yeah, tell me.
Teacher, when we say 20 instead of 20, is assimilation? When we say 20, 40,
yeah,
we
no.
are,
Yeah, you change. Yeah, here you are changing, but this is not called assimilation. This is called, remember, this is called flattening. You flat the sound. You reduce the sound. All right? You reduce. Ta becomes ra, no? Or na? 20.
20, 40, 30.
Yeah. All right. 30. So you are eliting, no? You are eliting sounds because you don't pronounce the sound ta at all. You are making elision. 20, 20, 20. So you omit the sound ta. You
omit the sound.
Yes, you elite.
But in this case, in assimilation, it changed.
Yes,
changed
one sound to another to make it similar. Yeah. Yeah, don't forget. That ta, the sound ta doesn't disappear. Si se dan cuenta, el sonido ta no desaparece. El ta se cambia. Cambia el sonido ta por el sonido pa para hacerlo similar al sonido ba, que es la palabra que comienza en breaker, ¿no? El sonido que comienza en breaker es ba. Y el sonido anterior a ba es ta. Entonces, para que nuestros órganos no, los nativos hacen bastante eso, para que los órganos no se muevan tanto, ya lo asimilo, ¿no? Y va heartbreaker, heartbreaker. Es donde utilizo la asimilación, ¿ya? No se olviden, assimilation. ¿Y cómo se llama esta asimilación? ¿Se acuerdan o no? A ver, fonología un poquito. ¿Se acuerdan o no? A ver, alguien que se acuerde.
Phonology,
Acuérdense, estamos viendo estos aspectos. Profesor, ¿y qué tiene que ver esto con el listening? No nos tocaba listening, no estamos en speaking. No estamos en speaking, pero estamos viendo esto porque el listening, acuérdense que es la codificación del lenguaje oral. Y cómo es que nosotros vamos a producir ese lenguaje oral, ¿no? Por eso es que estamos viendo estos aspectos, ¿no? Ya cuando veamos speaking, ahí sí lo vamos a ver con mayor amplitud. Acuérdense, esta asimilación, this assimilation is called regressive assimilation. Es una
regressive,
asimilación regresiva, porque ¿cuál es el
regresiva,
sonido? Ajá,
regressive,
regressive. ¿Cuál es el sonido que manda? El sonido que manda es va y hace que un sonido anterior a este sea cambiado. Por eso se llama regresivo. Regressive assimilation. Don't forget it. So, here you have the test sound changes to either a glottal stop or a pa in this context. ¿No? Puedo cambiarlo también un sonido glotal. Glottal stop. Or a pa in this context. So this is called assimilation. Another aspect, notice another aspect, intrusion. What is intrusion? When a sound is added in order to allow the speaker to link up the two words more easily. So we're going to add, notice, remember this term, elision, omit, assimilation, change, intrusion, add. Acuérdense, es tres términos básicos para identificar estos aspectos. Cuando hablo de elisión es omitir, quitar. Hablo de asimilación, cambiar sonido por otro. Y hablo de intrusión, añadir. So you're going to add sounds to link. Voy a añadir un sonido para unir otros sonidos. So you're going to link up the two words more easily. Notice, he doesn't have an original idea in his head. Notice what are we going to do here? Idea in. Notice idea in. So you're going to add the sound. Miren, aquí voy a añadir un sonidito, una consonante para unir dos vocales. Idea finishes in a vowel and in starts in a vowel sound. Remember that we're talking about sounds. So in order to join these two vowels, we are going to insert an extra sound. We're going to add an extra sound. What is the sound that we're going to use? Ra, ra. He doesn't have an original idea. Notice, it's not a strong You don't say idea ring. No. No, it's just a soft ra, ra, ra. Idea. Notice, idea in his head. He doesn't have an original idea in his head. Idea. You add this soft R, meaning he insertado esta R pero suavecita, tampoco es una R fuerte. Que digo, idea ring, no. No, idea in his head. Idea in his head. Notice that you're joining, you're adding, you're inserting, that's why we call intrusion, an extra sound to join this. So here we have an intrusive R is actually between idea and in. Idea. Notice you're adding an extra sound. Let me tell you something about the difference between British and American. British English use a lot this intrusive Los británicos utilizan bastante este sonidito como un sonido intrusivo. ¿Por qué? Porque los británicos no pronuncian la R final, pero sí la hacen cuando tienen dos palabras con vocales. Una palabra termina en una vocal y la otra comienza en otra vocal. Por ejemplo, los británicos dicen teacher, ¿no? Teacher. Los americanos dicen teacher, all right? Yes? Teacher. Now, pero ¿qué pasa si ese teacher le sigue of? Well, you can say the teacher of English. This is in American, ¿no? The teacher of English. So British says the teacher of English? No. They say similar to American, the teacher of English. también en ese caso sí pronuncia la R, porque la siguiente palabra comienza con una vocal. Of, the teacher of English. Para ellos, miren, para los británicos, para el acento británico, ahí la R es un sonido intrusivo, no es natural, porque ellos no pronuncian esa R. Pero aquí en este contexto, cuando tienen dos vocales, sí la van a pronunciar para unir esas dos vocales. En cambio, en el inglés americano esa R no es intrusiva, porque ellos sí pronuncian la R. The teacher of English. No intrusion. Miren cómo cambia también los aspectos según el acento que utilicemos. Let's continue. So this is another one. Another important feature is that formulaic phrases are often chopped, which means that the phrases are said rapidly as if they are one word. No, this is very important. So you join words and you say these words together and it seems to be just one word. You said rapidly as if they are one word. For example, you have this. Know what I mean. So I'm saying it slowly, no? Slowly. Know what I mean. But when you say fast, know what I mean? Notice, you put the words together and it seems to be just one word, no? Know what I mean? Know what I mean? So you do this. Know what I mean? So you put all the 4 words. Remember, you have here 4 words, but you say just in one, just breathe. With just one breath. You don't stop. You don't say, know what I mean. No, know what I mean. And notice this symbol. Miren ese simbolito que hay debajo de la T, que me da a entender lo que dijo hace un momento Lisbeth, que esa T, ese sonido ta, yo lo voy a aplanar y el ta se convierte en ra, ¿no? Know what I mean, know what I mean, what, ya no hay what, you know, what, know what I mean. Notice that you're flatting, flatting or flapping the sound ta, and becomes ra. And the representation is this symbol below the ta, no? It's like a V, all right, or like a check. So this is a flapping ta, all right, a flapping ta. Know what I mean? Notice this is another important characteristic of a spoken language. And some other sound systems and phonological concerns are also to be noticed. So here we have the famous stress, intonation, tone, voice volume, no? Rhythm. So we have other characteristics in the spoken language. All right, so notice here the different aspects or characteristics related to the spoken language. And the spoken language is informal, spontaneously. So you have a real interaction with the person who is speaking to you or listening to you. So you use a lot of features to connect words such as assimilation, elision, intrusion, and you pronounce words together, right? It seems to be like one word. So notice all the characteristics of a spoken language. And this is one of the reasons that some people consider that listening is difficult, no? When you listen to a native speaker, American or British speaker, sometimes, oh, teacher, no, I can't understand. Oh, they speak too fast, no? So no, it's complicated, no? It's complicated. So we could think like this, no? We can think like this, that listening is difficult, not complicated. So all in all, we may be able to conclude that listening is a more difficult task than reading, because in reading, you have the words, you have the opportunity to take your own speed, no, to understand the text. But when you listen to someone else, you listen to the person, you say, please, sorry, could you speak more slowly, please? Maybe to your teacher, you could say that, no? Teacher, sorry, can you say it again? Or could you repeat again? Because we couldn't listen to you so well. We couldn't understand you well. So, and the teacher can repeat, But most of the time when we speak and we listen to someone else, we don't have the opportunity to do that, no? So some people says that this is more complicated, more difficult than reading. And what are the difficulties? The characteristics of the message, the delivery, the listener, and the environment. For example, right now, you are listening to me, but maybe my connection is not so good. Maybe you can hear me like a robot. No, teacher, we can hear you, but you seems like a robot. It's not so clear, all right? Or maybe there's an echo, there are some noises around, my kids are playing. So notice the environment. When we talked about the characteristics of the message, we referred to the words or phrases spoken out can be confusing. Notice we have these kind of words. Mr. Claw from a slow button of the. So we have some words which are similar, no? Similar, they have similar sounds, and we cannot recognize easily which words are these, no? Mr. Claw from a slow button of the. Notice here like a tongue twister, no? Like a tongue twister. There are, of course, as slips of the ear, simple mishearing. For example, you say mergers and executions, mergers and acquisitions. So you cannot hear well and you misunderstand the message and you think that there are other words, no, the words that the speaker told, you hear other words, no? So you mishear, no? This is the term mishear or slips of the ear, no? In our language, teléfono malogrado, ¿no? Cuando escuchamos las palabras y en realidad no eran las que la persona lo dijo, ¿no? So this is a mishearing, ¿no? Because the words are so similar, ¿no? They have a similar pronunciation. That's why we can get confused. Linguistic difficulties such as unknown words. Notice when a person is talking, maybe he's using words that you don't know. Lexical density, how many words the speaker is using, no? Lexical density. Also some complex grammatical structure. Notice here, when we listen, we have also some linguistic difficulties such as words, vocabulary, no? The lexical density, remember, is referring to the quantity of words, the amount of words that the speaker is using when he or she talks, and also the grammatical structure that the speaker uses to. But there are also non-linguistic characteristics of the message include the familiarity of the topic. If you are familiar with what the person is talking or telling to you, the text type. No, for example, if you hear right now a news about the weather, for example, oh, they start talking fast, no, quickly, and you cannot recognize, no. But if you could hear a poem, maybe, yeah, there is more slowly. It's gonna be not so difficult to you to understand it. Maybe poems, the difficulty would be the vocabulary, because when we hear or listen a poem, they use some special words, no? Not common words, some rhetorical words. So it's gonna be difficult for that, but not for the text type, no? And also is the cultural accessibility. It's referring to the culture, no? Some people talk in different ways, using different phrases or idiomatic expressions, so we cannot understand them because we're not familiar with that, no? This is very important, no? This is also similar with a reading, no? When you read something, you can understand it in different ways, no? According to the person who reads the text, you could understand in different ways because of the knowledge of the culture that this person has or the knowledge of the language. If they know about that topic, so we have here some similarities between reading and listening. Now, the second one, the characteristics of the delivery. Notice the characteristics of the delivery. So it refers to the mode of delivery is a vital factor. Here, we will focus on reciprocal and non-reciprocal listening. What is that, teacher? Reciprocal, non-reciprocal. Do you have an idea? Reciprocal and non-reciprocal listening? Have you heard this term before? Reciprocal listening and non-reciprocal listening? No, 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 no. Nobody? Reciprocal listening and non-reciprocal listening.
Reciprocal.
Yeah, tell me.
When two people listen each other, could be reciprocal. When two people listen to each other.
Yes, very good. Reciprocal listening involves interaction between two or more than two people, which means that there is a conversation, all right? So here you use some strategies, repair strategies, so the speakers can react or ask to slow down. So you can use some strategies here, right? So we call this reciprocal listening. Remember, interaction. Remember just this word. When there is interaction between the speaker and the listener and vice versa, no? Because remember when we talked about the process of communication, we have a speaker, a listener, but the listener is also the speaker and the speaker is also the listener. So it means that you are producing an interaction. So we call this reciprocal listening. And non-reciprocal, here the listeners has no opportunities to do that as they are in a situation which they can only listen, such as watching TV. When you watch TV, you watch your favorite series or soap opera, so you cannot interact with the people who is acting, no, who are acting, no? No, you just listen, right? You just listen.
There is no interaction. There is no interaction. We just listen.
Exactly.
Like radio,
for example,
recording, video.
Yeah. For example, this kind of listening that we are having right now, it's a kind of reciprocal and a kind of not reciprocal, no? Because when we interact, you tell me your ideas or you make some questions, so you make this listening reciprocal. When I ask and you are silent, so it's non-reciprocal. It's not reciprocal because you're just listening, no? Listening and listening and listening. So we have these two kinds.
The lesson is reciprocal and the video from YouTube is non-reciprocal.
Yeah. All right. Yes, you're right, because you cannot interact. Huh? You cannot say, teacher, sorry, teacher, we couldn't understand. Can you say it again? No, you cannot do that. No, you just watch and listen, no more. And so don't forget about these two types of listening, reciprocal and non-reciprocal listening. In these circumstances, tell me. No, nobody. Oh, okay. Yeah. So in these circumstances, the listeners cannot control over the input. Notice you don't have any control of the input, which means that they cannot react directly to the speakers. No, this is in a non-reciprocal listening. You don't have any control of the input. You just receive. You cannot interact. You cannot react directly to the speakers. So we call this the non-reciprocal listening. And there are actually more characteristics of delivery, such as the organization, no? For example, when the speakers ramble on or change topics, the duration of the speaking, the number of speakers, and the accent. So we have these characteristics of the delivery, how you organize, no? For example, as I told you before, in order to do this speech, this talk, so I organize, no? Oh yeah, first I'm going to talk about this, then I'm going to talk about that, and finally I'm going to talk about this. So I organize, no? And I can change topics, no? For example, oh yeah, remember the phonology, no? What I told you, no? Remember what we talked about in phonology. So I changed the topic because this is not specifically related to listen, no? It has some relationship, but not specifically. So I changed the topic in order to remember something related to the topic, but not specifically the topic. So I changed it. I changed the topic. The duration, notice some of this is speaking last 5 minutes, maybe, or 3 minutes, some of them more than 1 hour. For example, like this, we have 2 hours. So notice the duration, the number of speakers. So I can speak to one person or 2 people, 3 people, or more than 3 or 4 more to a group of people. And the accent, that's very important, no? The accent, if I start talking in British English or American English. So notice, there are many characteristics of that delivery when you deliver the message. Now, let's see the third aspect, characteristics of the listener. Students can have some difficulties such as lack of concentration and motivation. Maybe they could have different styles of learning, the age, and also their emotions and feelings. So this is the characteristics of the listener. How can it be difficult for listeners, no, to understand what they listen, what they hear? One of the most important is they don't have enough concentration or they are not motivated enough. Also, the different styles that they could have. Some of them maybe don't like to listen, they like to watch, to interact, or the age, maybe, right? And also, if they are sad, or they are worried, or they are stressed, they are not going to understand easily what they are listening to, all right? So notice here different aspects that can make listening difficult for this, no? And the other aspect is the environment. Environmental conditions, temperature, background noise, defective equipment, no? And so may affect the listening performance. Another major problem is, which is not usually listed, is the role of memory of the listeners. No, for example, I ask you, oh, can you remember about phonology? Oh, no, I cannot. So, well, what's that? No, I cannot remember. Or maybe I ask you about the last class. Oh, no, teacher, I cannot remember. So it's depending on your memory, no? So the memory of the listeners. So notice here the different aspects, no? And why we cannot understand easily, because while words are being processed, others are coming, no? You're decodifying one, then the other person is talking and talking and talking, but you receive a lot of words, a lot of words, a lot of words. So you don't have enough time to process everything, right? So it means that the mind is being flooded, no? It's being flooded with words. So you receive a lot of words in just a moment, no? Oh, your brain is getting crazy, right? You're not accustomed to do that, so it's going to be so complicated, no? So this is an important factor to make listening a kind of difficult, no? So how can we help listeners to avoid being overloaded? How? Notice, and has a relationship with the reading skill. What do we need to do? One of the techniques that help our students to reduce the memory load is the process of activating listeners' prior knowledge. This is very, very important, because if we make our students to listen something and they don't know what is it about, they don't have any idea about it, so they are not going to understand easily, right? That's what at the beginning of the class I made this, no? I tried to activate your prior knowledge. What do you know about listening and why do we listen? You start, okay. According to your own ideas, no, your own point of views. I told you not to look up information in the internet, search information in the internet. No, because this is not your prior knowledge, because you are just searching information. The purpose of this activity was to activate your prior knowledge. What do you know about a topic that I'm going to talk? Maybe someone, listening. Yes, I've heard it a lot of times, but I don't know exactly what it is. And why? Why do we listen? To understand. You told me, just to understand. The principal purpose of listening is to understand what the other person is talking. Now, this is the general purpose of listening. But we saw more purposes of listening. So this is very important. In order to avoid that your students are overloaded with so many words. So the first thing to do is to activate their prior knowledge or schemata. Notice, this is similar to reading. Yes, we talked about this in reading. So in listening, we are going to do the same, to activate their schemata, to activate their prior knowledge. All right. So this is very important, not the students to be overloaded with a lot of words. And it's going to be so difficult for them to understand what they are listening. So this will get listeners into the topic and help them develop their expectations of the input. Input, remember, input is what they are going to receive, all right? They are going to hear or listen. This is called the input, which is a very crucial factor for them to be able, that is a mistake, to be able to predict the content. To predict. They are going to predict the content, the message, and it's going to be easy for them. It's going to be easy for them to understand the taste, the message, what they are listening to, what they are hearing, right? So this is very, very important, crucial factor. And again, similar to the reading process, listening is also a process. So we're going to have these two approaches. Can you remember about them? Can you remember about these approaches? Bottom up and top down. Can you remember or no? Yeah, I'm going to give you an example. I'm going to give you an example. So here you have this. I'm going to say it. You can read it too. 7 puppy dogs ran to the girl. Yeah, so we have a simple utterance or sentence. 7 puppy dogs ran to the girl. So I ask you, I'm going to make you a question. How many dogs? And what's the girl in danger? If I ask how many dogs, what are you required to do? What's the answer? Tell me, what's the answer? How many dogs ran to the girl?
7 little puppies.
Yeah.
7 little puppy dogs.
Yeah. Puppy, puppy. Oh, yeah, teacher, little dogs, no?
Yeah.
So
baby dogs.
7 dogs. So you are giving some specific answer, right?
Yeah.
And what about the other? Was the girl in danger?
Yes, she was.
Yeah.
No,
Yes. Are you sure?
If they were little
I
ones, little dogs, I don't think so.
Ah, notice here we have different answers, right? The first one, it was easy, teacher. I 7. So here you have the number. No? So notice literal understanding, referring to the test or the message of the utterance.
Mhm.
But on the second one, it's not here, right? You need to. What are you doing? You are? Yeah, you are analyzing. You are? What are you doing?
Inferring.
Ah, yes. You are inferring, but you are inferring on what? What do you use to infer? Your knowledge, no? Ah, teacher, yeah. 7 puppy dog. Puppy, I think it's just little dogs. So that they are cute, no? So you can say, oh, little dogs, they are cute. They're nice.
Maybe the girl is playing with the dogs.
Yeah, all right. Maybe she's the owner, no?
She's
Maybe
running.
she's the owner of these dogs. These dogs are the pets. Notice you are inferring, you are
The
deducing.
opposite would be 7 bulldogs. Bulldogs.
Ah, yeah.
The ones that
No, you say
the dogs
giant,
that
no?
are making news these days. How do you
Oh,
say
yeah. All right, yeah.
in
The bulldogs, yeah. Or
bulldogs?
Rottweiler, no?
These dogs that they catch you and they bite you and they don't let you go.
Yeah, yeah, yes.
What's the
It's
name in English of that dog?
yeah, Rottweiler. I think the race is Rottweiler. I think so. Rottweiler.
These very dangerous bulldogs,
Bulldogs or Rottweilers. No, pit bulls. Yeah.
pitbulls, 7 pitbulls. That could be
Yeah, it could be. So
that
you
could be
change.
danger. That could be danger.
Yeah.
But
So,
puppy dog,
yeah. So my purpose is to recognize. Notice, what are you using? The knowledge that you have about the world, right? Puppy. Puppy is referring to little dogs, cute dogs, small ones. You want to touch them, no? So maybe the girl is playing with them. No, I think the girl is not in danger. But others says, no, 7 puppy, 7 because of the quantity, no? Notice how you change. Notice, it depends on the person who reads or listen. Oh, 7, no, it's a huge quantity, 7 dogs. But maybe this person didn't take into account the other word, puppy. Oh, puppy, oh, small dogs, they're cute. So notice, what are we doing here? The first one, for example, is called button up. You are using here the button up process from a specific, no, here you have for specific information. And the top down is the idea. This is the top down. You need to infer to get to the idea. Notice here you have these 2 processes, the bottom up and the top down. The bottom up, you go directly to the specific information. How many dots have it? Top down, no. Oh, no. Was the girl in danger? Well, let me think. 7 could be food because of the quantity. 7, maybe she would be in danger. But if we analyze that they are puppy, maybe no, because they could be their pets. Or maybe the girl is playing with them. Notice. So we have these 2 processes, these 2 approaches of understanding or listening, bottom up and top down. Let's see. While listening can be very difficult, researchers have 2 listening models to introduce, the bottom up and top down. The bottom up, remember, this is similar to reading. Now we're just making like a feedback. Yeah? The bottom up model focuses on the meanings of each small pieces of the languages in the test. Small pieces. Oh, how many of those? 7. Small pieces of the language in the test. But on the other side, Top-down model is to do with the use of the background knowledge to predict content. Notice the difference. I'm going to go back. Oh, sorry. Yeah. Here, yes. Bottom up, the meanings of each small pieces of the language. The small pieces of the language. This is the bottom up. But the top down is the use of the background knowledge to predict content. When you hear this, you turn 7 dogs run into the girl. So you as a teacher ask, how many dogs ran into the girl? Oh yeah, teacher, 7 dogs. Was the girl in danger? You analyze, no? As one of your parents says, you start analyzing. You are starting deducing, no? Oh yeah, 7 quantity, the puppies. So notice, you use your background knowledge, the background knowledge to predict the content. You are inferring. So the top-down model is at least in part based on the listeners. Notice they are based, this is based on the listeners. Much of the comprehension relies on what happens in mind, what you think, even before the listening has begun, because it's about your prior knowledge, all right? Your background knowledge or prior knowledge or your schemata. Whereas, so while the bottom-up approach depends more on the sounds heard. Sound meaning, oh yeah, 7, yeah, 7, it means a quantity, no? Oh yeah, 7 dogs, There has been much debate recently about which models we need to use. Until recently, it is revealed that most errors caused by the mishearing of the individual words, which is a failure of the bottom-up approach. No, because this approach is based on the meaning of this specific, specific information or pieces of the language, and you could mishear a lot. All right, you could mishear. Maybe you couldn't hear 7. You could hear maybe third. No, maybe the environment or the accent. No. So teacher, water. For example, you say, "Oh, can you give me some water?" And you say, "Water." What did, for example, if I ask, "Can you give me some water?" And maybe the teacher asks, "What did the person ask?" What did the person ask? What did the person ask? Well, can you give me some water? What's water? If you're not accustomed with the British accent, maybe you cannot recognize it. So you mishear. Water. No. So this is the bottom up, because you are asking your student to identify, to identify some words, some pieces of the languages. So this is one of the disadvantages when you use the bottom-up approach. No? Some research, on the other hand, notice, some research, on the other hand, hints that there is the top-down approach which causes the mistake in listening task. In this, it says that students know the topic and hear some familiar words. Then they make wild guesses about the content. Notice, all the people says, all the researchers says that in the top-down approach, we can cause mistakes too. What kind of mistakes? Because of the topic. Maybe the student doesn't know about the topic. Maybe they could hear some familiar words. Or maybe they can make wild guesses. Wild guesses means that they are not so certain guesses, no? They are not so certain guesses about the content. As it happens, no? Someone uses, yeah, teacher, yeah, maybe they are dangerous because 7. No, puppy. And notice, you have different understanding. And this is a top-down approach because you can get different guesses. You don't have the same guess. So we can have here some misunderstandings. Notice, both approaches have some disadvantages. No? The bottom approach here, bottom-up approach, the difficulty in this approach is that you focus on the meaning of words, specific words. If you cannot hear well or you can understand them well, these sounds, you can misunderstand, no, mishear the test. In the top-down, what's the problem? In the top-down, that you could have different guesses because you don't know about the topic or you're not familiar with these words, so or the words related to the topic, or you can make some uncertain guesses. So we have these aspects when we talked about these two approaches, no? The top-down and the bottom-up. However, it is still a matter of ongoing research, right? So it is continuously investigated. No, research, remember, research means investigation. So it is still being investigated. But what we are sure is that we use both models when we listen, similar to the reading. So what do we use? What model do we use when we interact, the bottom up and the top down? Can you remember? How do we call this? A ver, ¿cómo se llamaba el modelo donde hacía funcionar ambos? Porque cuando uno lee, cuando uno escucha, va a utilizar ambos procesos. No es que yo quiero utilizar este y no utilizo, no, se utiliza ambos. No, the bottom up and the top down. But when we join these two, so we have the, how do we call this? Can you remember? This is also in reading. También lo vimos en reading. How do we call this? When we join, when we use the top down and the bottom up? No, nobody. So they are going to top down, bottom up, top down, bottom up. So they are going to? No, nobody. Okay, and don't worry. So here we're going to call this the interactive model because they are going to interact each other, all right? Yeah, top down in this kind of information and bottom up in this kind of information. So you use both. They interact each other, no? They interact each other. So we call this the interactive models, all right? The interactive model. Okay, so I think we're going to stop here. Ya nos vamos a quedar aquí. Quería comentarles algo. Hoy día entonces hemos visto, miren, lo que hemos visto ahora es qué es listening, qué se envuelve cuando uno habla de listening, ¿no? ¿Qué aspectos se consideran? Hemos visto varios propósitos de listening que están muy relacionados a lo que es reading, acuérdense. Tanto el reading como listening tienen bastante similitud. La diferencia está en el lenguaje que se utiliza. Por eso hemos visto las diferencias, ¿no? En reading vemos un lenguaje escrito, en cambio en el listening tenemos un lenguaje oral. Y hemos visto ahí las características del lenguaje oral, ¿no? Que es espontáneo, el momento, mayormente no planeado, que es temporal, ¿no? Y es contraste con el escrito, con reading, que tiene más tiempo, ¿no? Longevidad, ¿no? En cambio, el lenguaje oral no tiene esa característica, ¿no? Aunque también hemos visto que en estos días, ese aspecto característico de lo que es el lenguaje oral, también ahora lo está teniendo el lenguaje escrito, ¿no? Que también es en el momento, hay interacción. Ahí están los grupos de chat, ¿no? El profesor manda una tarea, el profesor responde, profesor, ¿y qué teníamos que hacer acá? Y el profesor responde por el chat. Hay una interacción, miren, ya se cambia esas características, ¿no? También es momentáneo. Uy, me equivoqué del mensaje, lo borro, lo borro, mando otro. O se me fue el celular, se borró el chip, se desaparecieron todos los mensajes. También viene a ser momentáneo, ¿eh? Que es una característica del lenguaje oral, ¿no? Luego hemos visto qué es lo que hacemos para poder entender, ¿no? Y también está relacionado a lo que es reading. Vamos a utilizar estos dos enfoques, estos dos modelos, bottom up and top down. Bottom up, acuérdense que ese modelo se enfatiza en significados específicos y ahí es donde puede producir ciertas equivocaciones, ¿no? Donde no entiendo el sonido que juntaron o hablaron y puedo escuchar otra palabra o no le entendí para nada. Y en el top down, pues utilizar el conocimiento previo, ¿no? The background knowledge, the prior knowledge, to deduce, to infer, to predict, ¿no? Para deducir, inferenciar o predecir. Y también va a tener un inconveniente porque este tipo de predicciones no son iguales, ¿no? Con lo que pasó ahí con el ejemplo, ¿no? Uno me dijo, no, profesor, puede ser peligroso los perritos, pues vimos el número, ¿no? Nos fijamos en el número, 7. Ah, no, muchos. También otros se fijaron, no, profesor, papi, acá es cachorritos, no creo, de repente está jugando, ¿eh? Miren cómo cambia mi predicción, ¿no? Dependiendo de cómo yo lo estoy manejando. Desde mi punto de vista, uno se enfatizó en el número, otro se enfatizó en el tamaño de los perritos, ¿no? Entonces miren cómo cambia y eso crea también un pequeño inconveniente o confusiones, ¿no? Cada enfoque o cada modelo tiene sus pros y sus contras. Pero lo importante es recordar que ambos se utilizan, ambos lo utilizamos para poder entender, ¿no? Tanto cuando leo algo como cuando escucho algo, ¿ok? Muy bien. Les quería mencionar sobre la plataforma, por favor, no olvidar darse los quiz, ya está habilitado este segundo quiz sobre reading, ya tienen toda esta semana, a partir de mañana ya ustedes van a poder dar el segundo quiz sobre reading y estará abierto toda la semana, de domingo a domingo, ya quiere decir del domingo 3 hasta el domingo 10, sí, del domingo 3 hasta el domingo 10 está habilitado su quiz o test pequeño, nada más cortito. Igual que el anterior, tienen 2 oportunidades para darlo. Acuérdense que el objetivo aquí es más que todo para reafirmar ciertos aspectos que estamos viendo aquí en las sesiones. No olvidarse, eso sí, de completarlos, ¿ya? Por favor, no se olviden eso. Ya he puesto también ya en la plataforma las diapositivas de todas las semanas del módulo anterior. Allá lo pueden ver. Todas ya están puestas, ya las subí para que ustedes puedan ahí también refrescar, ¿no? Y antes de repente de dar el quiz, el test, con las diapositivas para no estar leyendo todo el manual, todos los manuales, con las diapositivas uno ya rápidamente puede ir repasando y así puedan dar su test, ¿ya? Así que por favor, ya están las diapositivas de todas las 4 semanas anteriores y ya está también su pequeño test que lo pueden dar a partir de mañana, domingo hasta el próximo domingo. Ahí les estoy dando una semanita para que ustedes puedan desarrollarlo, ¿ok?
Profesor, una pregunta.
Sí, dímelo ahora.
¿Dónde puedo encontrar esa plataforma? ¿A dónde la está enviando usted?
Oh, no, eso tiene que... No tienes tú, Laura, el acceso al aula virtual.
No.
El aula... Porque pregunté la vez pasada y me dijeron que sí, todos tenían. Si no lo tienes, coordina con la persona encargada de Edu Perú, el coordinador.
I don't either.
¿Ya tampoco, Lisbeth? Uy, ¿qué pasó?
I don't either.
Porque la vez pasada yo les pregunté, ¿tienen todos acceso? Y todos me dijeron, sí, tenemos acceso. Ya, pues dije, todos estarán bien. Entonces pídanle por favor al coordinador. Con el coordinador tienen que hablar para que les dé su clave, todo, para que ustedes puedan tener acceso a la plataforma. Acuérdense que en la plataforma está todas las clases grabadas, los materiales, los manuales, está también las diapositivas que ya les he subido. Todo el material está ahí en la plataforma, en el aula virtual. Ustedes pregúntenle al coordinador, por favor, quisiera acceso al aula virtual. Entonces ahí les van a dar su código, ¿no? Su contraseña, para que ustedes puedan utilizarlo, ¿ya? Me confirman, por favor, los que no tienen para que pueda ampliarle de repente el primer quiz, pues entonces quiere decir que no han dado el primer test, ¿ya? Entonces me confirman, por favor, para yo habilitarles o ampliarles el tiempo para que den su primer quiz, ¿ya?
Okay. Teacher, we can have another option, please, for quizzes, for the first quiz, because I tried just once, and I would like to do it once again. I didn't know that it could be twice.
Yes, he had the opportunity to take it twice. Oh. Yeah, let me show you. Let me show you. I'm going to share it. Just give me a second. A ver, a ver, a ver, a ver, a ver. ¿Dónde está?
¿Tiene que verlo con la universidad o no?
Ah, miren, este es el aula virtual. A ver, ¿dónde está? Creo que lo cerré. Lo he cerrado. A ver, uy, mi internet está lento. Se puso lento. No. Ya, a ver. Miren, voy a verificar o lo voy a ampliar, ya, pero ya ahí sí ya no puedo ampliar más. ¿Ah? Por favor, tratemos de coordinar bien los que no tienen el acceso a la plataforma. Y
Yeah.
ahí le voy a agregar un tiempo más al primer quiz, ¿ya?
Yeah, excellent teacher. Thank you very much.
Okay.
Thanks, teacher.
Well,
So that could be that would be or that is the first grade, Mr. Gatillon.
first, yeah.
You're evaluating using this test.
Yes, just a test.
Evaluation. So we must do it.
Yeah. Yes.
Okay. Mhm.
Yeah, it's so simple.
Okay.
Just to answer some questions, objective questions. It's not so complicated. It's not so complicated. Well, that's all for today. See you next week. Take care a lot. Yeah, take care a lot. Bye-bye.
Take care too. Goodbye.
Bye-bye, teacher. Take care too.
Bye-bye. Bye-bye.
Bye, teacher.